everyone, welcome back to another video. And in today's video, as you can probably tell, we are going to be doing a book haul because we are kind of the end of the year and I think it's time for me to talk about every single physical book that I bought this year. If you're new here, hi, I'm Carol, and in this channel we talk mainly about books, and also in terms of genres I read a little bit of everything. And in terms of books, if you haven't been following my journey this year, I have been trying to read mostly from my Kindle TBR because in general I have a lot of books on my Kindle TBR and I have a tendency of forgetting the books that are on my Kindle TBR, but the books on my physical TBR, for me it's easier to remember because they are just all sitting here on my bookshelves. They're all sitting in this little corner behind me, so I see them constantly. I remember the books that are on my physical TBR. Taking the TBR is a different story. But even though I have been focusing on reading through my Kindle, mostly reading on my Kindle for most of the year, I still have continued to get physical books. So we are going to start talking. Let's talk about all the 28 books I got this year. So here we have two piles. In this one we have romance and some thrillers, and one of them is a classic. And in this corner we have some general fiction, non-fiction, fantasy and some sci-fi. So I'm going, I think, to start picking up a little bit from each pile. I'll pick a book from one pile, then one from another, and then in this way we'll get through both piles of the books I got this year. Okay, so I think I'm going to start through this pile. So the first book in this pile is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. In this book we follow a group of elderly people that apparently they have some sort of club. They meet every Thursday to try and figure out or solve a murder, and one day there is a real murder that happens on their doorstep and they decide to try and solve it. At least that's what I think this book is about. I know this book has been adapted into a movie for Netflix, and I want to watch that movie because it sounds really fun. And also I heard some people talk about how this book feels like only murders in the building, and I'm a fan of only murders in the building, and if this book has the same vibe, I have a feeling I might enjoy it. So the first book in this pile is The Thursday Murder Club, and I'm already going to start and tell you, let's already talk about the only other thriller we have on this pile, which is also a classic, and it is Ripley Underground by Patricia Highsmith. This book is the third book in the Talented Mr. Ripley series, and I first read The Talented Mr. Ripley last year, almost 2 years ago, and I really enjoyed it, and I do want to continue reading the series. I already have the second book in the series on my TBR, which is, I think, what is the name? The book is right behind me. My TBR is right behind me. So the other book, the second book, is Ripley Underground. What did I say the name of this book is? The name of this book, the third book, is The Ripley's Game, or O Jogo de Ripley, because I got a Portuguese translation to this book. And I know I still haven't read the second book in the series, but I know I want to continue reading the series, and I saw this book on a Black Friday sale, so I was like, no, I'm already going to read it one day. This book isn't going to spoil in a few years, so I'm already going to get it and keep it on my TBR. Now moving on to this side of the pile. First book we have is quite a chunky one, quite chunky. It is The Diary of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a fantasy, and everyone that I ever saw talking about this book loves it and says it is amazing, and I have been on a fantasy mood, a fantasy sci-fi reading mood, and since this book seems to be so loved, everyone seems to love this book, everyone that reads it seems to love this book, I decided to give it a try. I also saw it on a sale and was like, no, let's pick it up, let's give it a try. Also, usually The Diary of the Orange Tree, the English editions, they are quite expensive, I believe, so when I saw it on sale I was like, it's a cool chance to give it a try. And then also because it was on sale, and maybe this was a crazy thing to do and buy at once because I haven't read the first book in the series, but I got A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. And if you haven't already read this book, please tell me if I can read this book before, or I need to read the books in order where they were published, because I saw somewhere that it's just an interconnected standalone, not interconnected standalones, but these books are mostly interconnected. You don't need to read the series in order, but I'm not sure, and I don't want to try and go into it because I don't want to be spoiled. I usually don't mind being spoiled for books, but because this book is quite chunky, it's quite popular, I have barely an idea what these books are about. I just want to go into it blindly, and I'm apprehensive of trying and googling it to see if or going to Goodreads and trying to figure out if I can read these books in a specific order or not, because fun fact, I once was spoiled for a book even on Pinterest. I usually don't care about being spoiled, but for this series in particular, I'm kind of avoiding it. So if you know if there is a particular reading order, please let me know, or if I can just read it no matter the order. But I got the Day of Fallen Night. And then moving on back to this pile, we have Magnolia Parks Into the Dark by Chasa Hastings. This is the 5th book in the Magnolia Parks universe, technically the 3rd and final book from the Magnolia Parks and BJ POV, but I believe it's the 5th book on the Magnolia Parks universe if you count the Daisy Hates novels, that Daisy Hates POV novels. And I got this book because I know I want to continue reading the series, and I saw again this book was on sale. I know I want to continue reading it, so I decided to pick it up because, you know, it probably won't spoil, probably it will just stay there on my DBR until I get to it. And I'm going to be honest, I usually don't follow authors on social media. I don't go looking at authors' social media on the regular. They're just very particular authors that I follow or I like to check their social media, and Chasa Hastings is not one of those authors. And in general, most of the time when I find out something that an author posted, I find out through other people. And it has come to my attention the weird behavior Chasa Hastings seems to be having on social media, especially when it comes to talking about Daisy Hate and the next book in the side of the series. And I really want to continue reading Magnolia Parks because I enjoyed the first book. I like that it is very Gossip Girl, Makey London vibes, and as a person that grew up watching Gossip Girl and that really liked Gossip Girl, that sounds wonderful. It's just, this book just feels like gossip, it just feels like a soap opera. And while I really want to continue reading it, I'm not going to lie, seeing the way some of the things Chasa Hastings seems to be saying on social media, it's kind of making me avoid continuing to read the series. So I need to do kind of like a detox, try to forget a little bit about it and go back to reading Magnolia Parks, because sometimes we just want to read a remix of what we are used to, of the shows we used to watch as children or teenagers. So I got Magnolia Parks Into the Dark, and this cover also don't match the other covers that I have from the series because I have the OG covers, but honestly I usually don't mind for if a book is different, it's a different edition from the one that I have, unless it's for specific cases. Also the OG covers, the other style of these covers, they were quite more expensive, so I got Magnolia Parks Into the Dark in this version. So let's go back to this pile. We have The Prison Healer, or I got the Portuguese translation, and in Portuguese it is called A Curandeira de Zalindov. It's quite a different name. This book's by Lynette Noni, and it's the first book in a YA fantasy trilogy I heard really great things about, and apparently it is about a young woman who has been in prison her whole life and she works as a healer, and apparently she is working with someone important so they can compete in some sort of competition. Also, I assume Zalindov might be somewhere in this universe, or maybe even the name of the prison, because it's the name on the translation, on the title. So I got The Prison Healer. And then going back here, we have Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I already read this book. It's one of the few books in Spiles that I have already read. Not in Love follows Rue and Eli. They first meet in a during a date, and the next day they find out that Eli, he owns a company, and his company is planning on doing a hostile takeover of Moon's company. And because Wu really loves her job and she's really close with her boss and the owner of the company, she's not very happy with Eli. But this is a romance novel, so basically they always keep finding themselves surrounding each other. They are always in each other's orbit, they are always drawn to each other, and there's a romance going on with them, and they need to kind of figure out things. And I already read this book, I really enjoyed it. Going back to this pile, we have The Familiar by Lee Bardugo. I think I already showed this book in a previous vlog, but this is a historical fantasy that I don't know much about. I know it takes place in Spain, and everyone that I ever saw reading this book really liked it, always had great things to talk about, and I really enjoyed other books by the author, so I decided to pick The Familiar and give it a try. And also, if you watched the vlog, I remember saying that this book didn't smell great when I first got it, but now it smells like a book. The smell I managed to take off the weird smell, and now it just smells like a book. Next book on this side, it is Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. This was one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I still haven't gotten to it, but this is a college sports romance that follows Scarlett Vandermeer and Lucas Blomqvist. They are both swimmers. She is, I believe, a competitive diver, and he's a swimmer, kind of like a prodigy. He has, I believe, already even won medals in the Olympics, and they start the romance apparently as a friends with benefits, but then things developed something more. And I just wanted to read this book because it's swimming, and if you watch the Olympics, swimming. Also, it's Ali Hazelwood. I really like Ali Hazelwood. I like the premise. I also heard really great things about it, and just it's Ali Hazelwood. And the fact that this book was originally called Wet with an H, for me, also makes me even more curious about this book. Next on the side of the pile, we have Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, and this is, I believe, a cozy fantasy that follows Emily Wilde, who is a scholar she's studying fairies, kind of. That's what I heard about it, and also again heard great things. I have been curious about this book for quite some time, but I have a very extensive TBR, and I always kept saying to myself that I would only get this book if I got through like a certain amount of my TBR, or if I saw it on sale. I saw this book on sale, and I saw it on the cover that I like, which is this cover, which is the American/Canadian cover. I personally don't like the British cover, the beige cover. I think it's kind of boring, sorry UK, but the American cover with the green, the dark green, it looks really cool. And I believe also the Portuguese translation has a similar cover, has a really cool cover, so I got them in Encyclopedia of Fairies because I wanted to read for quite some time. I saw it on sale, and it was on the cover that I like. On this side of the pile, you have Bridgerton, the Viscount Who Loved Me, and I extended, not accidentally, because this was actually the cheapest copy available, and if there's something about me, if there is a cheaper copy available, I will probably go for the cheaper copy. But I got a large print, which I don't know if I love it or if I hate it, because it seems to be great on the eye, but also it is quite large. The font's quite large. But I got Bridgerton, the Viscount Who Loved Me because I love the TV show. But around the time, I think like 5 years ago, when the first season first came out, I read Bridgerton, the Duke and I at first I really enjoyed it. I thought it was not the best novel, not the best romance, but I thought it was really entertaining. And then there was a certain scene which also happens in the show, but in the book it's worse, and I really didn't like it. And for a moment I said, you know what, I will not continue reading the series, I won't continue reading the books because of the scene. I will go back and only watch the shows because the shows are actually better than the books. But then each season is taking like 2 years, a year and a half to be released, and I really love the shows. I'm curious about the books, I'm curious about the stories, I want to know about the character stories. And I know they gender swapped Michael, which is Francesca's partner in the books, and I hear a lot of great things about Michael. I want to read Eloise's book soon because I love Eloise as a character. I want to know Eloise's story. So I got Bridgerton the Viscount Who Loved Me, which is the second book in the Bridgerton series, so I can try and give the book series a second try. I'm aware that the TV show is most likely better than the books, but I'm curious, so I decided to get the second book series, give it a try, and hopefully I will like it and I will be able to know the stories of the characters before the TV show, and I won't need to wait 2 years for each season of Bridgerton to come out. In this side, the next book is Absolution by Jeff Vandermeer. This is the 4th book in the Southern Witch series, which I had no idea, and I think most people that like the series had no idea that there was going to be another book in the series. I've been wanting to read this book ever since it came out. It has always been quite difficult to get where I live. The whole series is quite difficult to get where I live. I went on a whole journey to get the 2nd and the 3rd book from the Southern Witch trilogy, because to this day I believe the Portuguese translation, because the 1st book, the Annihilation, the 1st book in the series, I got in Portuguese. To this day, I don't think the Portuguese translation is back to being printed. It's only available on Kindle, and the English books for the series in particular, probably it's not very popular here or something, but they're always very, very expensive. And so I went on a whole journey to get the 2nd and 3rd book. I was waiting to find this book, to find Absolution for a price that wasn't absurd, because every time I checked on the book, the price was always absurd. Again, I saw it on sale. I got it because I really want to read Absolution. It was still quite an expensive book, but I know I want to read it. But if you don't know, the Southern Witch trilogy basically tells the story of this remote area where weird things have been going on, and for many years the government has been trying to figure out what is going on in this area X, which is also blocked off from all the other people, regular people, from entering. So for many years they keep sending different groups of people to go in the area X to explore and try to figure out what is going on. But every single group of people, they either never return, or they return and they're kind of not themselves anymore. There's always something weird going on, and throughout the first 3 books, in the first book we follow one of these expeditions, and in the other 2 books we kind of start learning a little bit more about this area, and I have no idea what Absolution is about. I just know I want to read it. Going back to this file, we have The Heart Principle by Helen Huang. This is the 3rd book in the Keys of Deception, I believe the name. It's something. It's a series that I forgot the name. But I thought this book, I always heard great things about the series, but the first 2 books in the series are quite expensive, and this is a series of interconnected standalone novels, so you don't need to read the series in order. And the Heart Principle was for a price that I still don't understand why it was for that price, but I'm curious about the series. And I also heard the Heart Principle seems to be some of the people that I follow their favorite from the series, so I'm curious. I got the Heart Principle. It's just, I believe, a more emotional romance. It's just a romance novel, and I like romance novels. Then on this side we have The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. This is a classic sci-fi, and apparently it is quite a funny sci-fi, and sometimes we just want a funny book, and I got it because it's apparently a funny sci-fi, and that's all I can tell you about this book, because I think probably when I got it I knew what it was about. I kind of forgot, but I believe it's funny. On this side we have a sequel. We have Nothing Like the Movies by Lynn Painter. This is the sequel to Better Than the Movies, which was one of my favorite books from last year, and I don't think the book needed a sequel, but it got a sequel, so I'm curious about it because I loved the first book, so I want to read it. But also I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of avoiding it because I'm scared that reading this book will ruin Better Than the Movies for me, so I'm kind of avoiding Nothing Like the Movies, but I need to read it because I really like Better Than the Movies. This next book was 100% inspired by the Oscars, and I got The Wild Robot by Peter Brown. And this book is apparently a cozy YA sci-fi that follows a robot that lives on a remote island. And apparently it's really cute, it's really cozy, and again, sometimes you just want something cute, cozy, escapism, and The Wild Robot, I hope it delivers that. I'm going to continue on the side because we have a non-fiction and we have more books on the side than this one, but we have a non-fiction. We have Nexus by Yuval Noah Harari. If you watched one of my previous reading wrap-ups from this year, you will have known that I started listening to this book on audiobook. I started listening to it in Italian randomly because it was available on Audible for no extra fee. And I got to chapter 3 and my Audible subscription ran out and I didn't want to pay it again. So I kind of put this book down, even though I was really enjoying it and I wanted to continue reading it because I really liked the first 3 chapters of this book. And then this book is quite expensive. I saw it was on sale on Black Friday. It was like 50% off, so I decided to get it because I know I want to continue reading this book someday in the future. So we have Nexus. Let's continue. We have Everything About Love by Bell Hooks. Is another non-fiction that I initially got it for my mom, and then she loved it, and then she gave it to me and said, you need to read this. And as everything she gives me and says, you need to read this, I have been putting off. But I know this is a very popular book. It's actually kind of became a meme online about people being performative, but also apparently it is a really good book. And it talks about, from what I've heard, it talks about love, like romantic love, platonic love, family love, all sorts of love. And I'm really curious about this book, so everything I know about it. Am I saying the name of this book correctly? Because I got the Portuguese translation, which is Tudo sobre Amor, which is Everything About Love. But I'm blanking on the exact name in English because ideally I want to get this book in English, but this book is always sold out because it's so popular. And I got this for my mom, so I got it in Portuguese. And I think it's Everything About Love, right? The name of this book in English? I'm kind of blanking out. I'm not sure. I think I'm kind of mistaking the name of this book with the name of the book by Dolly Alderton, and it's just kind of messing. It's a mess in my head of the title of this book. But moving on, let's go back to this pile. We have Once More Refilling by Eliza Sussman. This book, I read Fun to Task by the author this year. It was the first book I finished reading this year and I really enjoyed that book. And Once More Refilling is one book I haven't heard great things about. Actually, even when I go on Goodreads, I have never seen a positive review about this book. But because I read another book by the author and I was curious, I decided to pick it up and give it a try again. I saw it on sale, so I was like, I'm curious. According to the back, this book will follow a former pop star and 2 former pop stars. She used to be this really popular pop star, kind of like Britney Spears in the 2000s, and she apparently had the perfect life, the perfect also pop star boyfriend, but at the same time she was having an affair with her boyfriend's bandmate, and they had like this very popular band like One Direction or guys like NSYNC or something like that. And one day people find out that she was having an affair with the other guy, and basically both their careers explode. And now many years later, the 2 of them, they haven't been in contact, they haven't talked with each other since that whole situation. But the male main character, he's working on a Broadway play and he wants the female main character to be the lead actress in this play. Then it's a second chance romance as well. Again, I haven't read one single positive review about this book, but I'm curious. And since I only have other 2 books inside of the pile, so I'm going to finish this pile first. Next we have Maxon Hall. I believe this is one Save You. I don't remember the exact names of the Maxton Hall series, the order of the names, but if you give me the covers I can tell you the order you're supposed to read the series. But this is the second book in the series because Little Theo, I started watching the first season for Maxton Hall. At first I really didn't like it. I was like, there's something weird about it, and then I realized that it's because the TV show is in German, and for some reason, not for some reason, if you use Prime and you watch shows in multiple different languages, you know the little problem with Prime and subtitles settings. When I started watching Max on Home, and at first I was like, oh, there's something weird about this book, and then I realized, oh, it's because it's German, and the audio that is coming for me is, like, coming out for me, it's in English, because that's the automatic audio that came for me. And also, I know they're speaking in a British accent, and this series is supposed to take place in the UK, but the authors also, they just look very German to me, and everything, if you pay close attention, it looks very German. And then also it is a series that follows teenagers, and I was like, maybe I'm getting a little bit too old to watch shows about teenagers and teenage drama. And also the male main character, James, like, I didn't like him. The first time I saw him on screen, I was like, no, please don't tell me there will be a romance with this guy, and there's a romance with that guy. But then I kind of ended up binge watching the whole show, and I really liked it. It's kind of like a guilty pleasure. I watched the first episode, I was questioning myself whether or not I liked it, but then when I blinked and I watched the whole season, and now there is the second season already out. I still haven't started reading the second season, but I found out that they are based off a series of books, of German books, that have been translated to different languages that I can actually understand and that I can actually read. So I started to pick Max on Hall because I want to read this book series, because I'm just so curious and I don't want to wait for the third season to come out. And going back to this book, why do I have the second book in the series? It's because the second book was for sale on Black Friday, and I was like, I know I want to read it, so I'm going to get it on sale, and then I will go to my local bookstore, and I'm going to get the first and the third book in the series. But I'm going to be honest, another reason why I got this book is because I was kind of questioning whether or not I should get the book, because at the same time I want to read Maxton Hall. Every time I ever saw this book before, it had sprayed edges. This version doesn't have sprayed edges, but the English edition is extremely expensive, and it has the TV show covered in, which is not cute, and the Brazilian editions. Every time I saw them before, they have sprayed edges, and it's solid color sprayed edges that matches the color of the cover, and I don't think it works. I think sprayed edges works in like a special edition. In regular books it just doesn't work, and I just don't like them. And also, like, the color scheme, it also just doesn't work. But then I went to a bookstore and I found out that the first two books they no longer have sprayed edges. The new print run, they don't have sprayed edges, so I tried to pick this book up because it doesn't have sprayed edges. But then, if I like the third book, which I think is Save Us, it was just released, and it has sprayed edges, and the book in the Brazilian edition of this book, it's black, so it has solid black sprayed edges. It doesn't look cute. I don't understand who had the brilliant idea of putting solid black sprayed edges on a book and to put sprayed edges on this book in general. And I know every time I see someone from the US or Canada posting about books and new books, it seems to be kind of like the sprayed edges pandemonium in the US, with just paperbacks having these weird solid color sprayed edges that just don't make sense, and they don't look cute because they're just your regular paperback. And for a while I was happy that, you know what, here you have some books that have sprayed edges, but not all of them. This is catching on. We are getting regular books with sprayed edges, and it looks just so ugly. Sorry. If you liked it, good for you. If you don't like it, I guess you'll be with me and you agree that just solid color sprayed edges in regular books just don't work. And in this case, for the third book in the Maxton Hall trilogy, it has solid black sprayed edges. It looks ugly, it looks not great, and I think I will wait to the second batch for the book to come out, so hopefully I can get it with no sprayed edges. I can get it with regular edges, because That's how I prefer my books. But rant over, the next book I got is The 7 Years Sleep. And if you're looking at the cover, you might be wondering, Carol, this doesn't look like 7 Years Sleep. That's because I also got the Brazilian version of this book, the Portuguese translation, and the cover is quite different, and the cover is not as cute as the classic 7 Years Sleep cover. But I have been curious about the book for quite some time, and I decided to get it because I have been curious about the 7 Years Sleep for quite some time. I only heard great things about it, so I got it. I saw it on sale on Black Friday, and I decided to get it because I'm curious about it. Now going back to the last 4 books in this bio, we have some short ones and some chunky ones and some fire ones. So another one that I have already showed in a previous vlog, it is, I believe it's called In the Shadows by this author. I'm not going to pronounce his name because I don't know how to pronounce this author's name, but it is a very short essay, and it's Japanese, and it was originally published in 1933, and it apparently follows some sort of tells you or talks about Japanese philosophy surrounding aesthetics, and talks about skin color, architecture, and everything aesthetics, like even theater, food, clothes, paper, how all of this reflects aesthetic and the Japanese culture. And the concept just sounds really good. I honestly thought I would have already read this book by now, but I have been in and out of a reading slump this year, and I ended up not picking it up, so hopefully I will be able to get to it soon, because it just sounds so interesting. And then the next book, it's a book that has been viral in Brazil, and it is called Coisa de Rico, A Vida dos Engenheirados Brasileiros, or loosely translating to English, Rich People Stuff, or Stuff of Rich People, The Life of the Wealthy Brazilians by Michel Alcoforado, and he's a sociologist that he infiltrated himself in the 1% of Brazilian society, the ultra wealthy Brazilians, a group of ultra wealthy Brazilians, and in this book he's basically talking about it. And this book, every time I have been to a bookstore ever since it has been released, this book is one of the best-selling books. I saw one interview with the author, and that's what convinced me to read this book, because the way he spoke about it, it just sounded so interesting. And again, this book has kind of been going viral here, and I'm curious about it. Because what does it say? Why it is a bestseller? I have an idea, but why so popular? And this author has been getting a lot of interviews and a lot of press, and like, why so popular? So I got Coisa de Rico. I usually don't get new releases because they tend to be quite expensive, but again, I saw this on the Black Friday sale, and I was like, I'm very curious about it. Let's give it a try. The next book we have, it's not a non-fiction, we are back to fiction, but I also have a short one, and this one is Foster by Claire Keegan. I believe this book follows a young child that they come from a very large family, and one day they get sent to live with a foster family, and the reality living with a foster family, it's quite different from living with their biological family. And I've been wanting to read Claire Keegan for quite some time because I only heard really great things about Claire Keegan and her books and her work, so I'm curious. I got Foster, and also it's quite short. So the next book I got, I honestly don't remember why I got it, but I got Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. And the last and final book in this video, it's a chunky one, quite chunky. I got The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verheyse, and I believe this book is a generational tale from a family in India where every single generation there is at least one person that dies because of something relating to water. They either drown, there is some sort of accident, there's always something related to water that makes each generation of the family to pass away. And this is a book I have been curious about because I always heard great things about it, but also it's not one I plan on reading very, very soon. I don't think so, at least not right now, at least not when I got it. But this book recently released a translation to Portuguese, and I was looking at it. Went to a book fair, and then I was looking at it, and then I saw the price, and I was like, wow, very expensive because it's a new release. and was like, I will get it later. And then I went online, and then I decided to just see the price of it online on another bookstore, and then I found the English edition also way cheaper. And you know me, if you couldn't tell from me talking about all the other books in this book haul, I love a good book sale. So I got The Covenant of Water. It's a book I want to read someday soon, and it's quite chunky, and that's the last book I have to talk about in this reading vlog. So yes, that's all 28 physical books that I got in 2025. So if you like this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel if you want to join us on our bookish adventures. And yes, that's it for this video, and I hope to see you in another one very soon. Bye!